Buying a home in the UK has become one of the most stressful, drawn-out, and emotionally draining processes you can go through. And if you've ever tried it yourself, you already know exactly why. People spend months lining everything up, paying for surveys, searches, legal fees, mortgage applications, and then out of nowhere the entire chain collapses because someone higher up gets cold feet, someone else accepts a higher offer, or a buyer simply pulls out at the last minute. All that time, all that money, all that emotional investment, and suddenly you're back at square one without even getting the keys. That frustration is exactly why the latest government consultation on speeding up and reforming the home buying and selling process is causing such a stir across the property world. And today we're breaking down what these proposed changes could really mean for buyers, sellers, and the mortgage industry as a whole. If you want clear, no-nonsense updates on UK housing, mortgages, interest rates, and everything connected to bricks and mortar, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because this is one topic that could affect millions of people over the next few years. Right now, one of the biggest problems with buying a property is how late key information becomes available. Under the current system, buyers usually only pay for surveys and local authority searches after their offer has been accepted, which means you're already emotionally and financially committed before you discover any serious issues. The government is now looking at flipping that system completely on its head. Under the proposed changes, property searches and surveys would be made available much earlier in the process, potentially before a property is even officially listed. That means instead of buyers paying hundreds of pounds later on, the seller would cover those upfront costs and provide that information from day one. We're talking about things like local authority searches, drainage checks, environmental risks, and structural surveys, costs that can easily run from £250 to £400 or more depending on the area. The idea is simple but powerful. Buyers would be able to see potential issues before making an offer, not after they're already locked in emotionally. That leads directly into another major proposed change, which is mandatory upfront information disclosure. At the moment, it's far too common for buyers to discover nasty surprises weeks or even months into the process. Service charges that are higher than expected, short lease lengths, ground rents that increase every few years, or complicated chain situations often only come to light once solicitors start digging deeper. Under the new proposals, sellers would be required to share all of this critical information right at the start. That means lease details, service charges, ground rent clauses, and chain status would be visible before you even think about making an offer. For buyers, this could be a game changer. Instead of falling in love with a property and then discovering deal-breaking issues later, you'd have the full picture up front and could make a confident, informed decision from the start. Another big part of the consultation focuses on modernizing the process through digital tools. The government wants to push for wider use of digital property logbooks, digital ID verification, and faster access to land registry information. Right now, the system still relies heavily on manual checks, repeated document requests, and slow back-and-forth communication between solicitors, agents, and lenders. Digitizing more of this process could dramatically reduce delays and cut down on repetitive admin that frustrates everyone involved. There's even talk of introducing clearer performance ratings for conveyancers and estate agents, giving buyers and sellers more transparency when choosing who they want to work with. In theory, that could improve standards across the industry by rewarding efficiency and professionalism rather than just price. Perhaps the most controversial proposal of all is the idea of signing legally binding contracts much earlier in the process. At present, a property transaction in England and Wales isn't legally binding until contracts are exchanged, which often happens right at the very end, sometimes just hours before completion. Until that moment, either party can pull out with relatively few consequences, leaving the other side out of pocket and emotionally exhausted. The government is now exploring ways to allow binding commitments to be made earlier, reducing the number of failed sales. This could mean stronger penalties for buyers or sellers who withdraw without good reason, making the entire process more secure but also potentially riskier if circumstances change unexpectedly. To put this into perspective, Scotland already operates a system where offers can be legally binding much earlier, and as a result, transactions there tend to fall through far less often. In England and Wales, it's not unusual for a sale to drag on for 6 months or more without ever becoming legally secure. The government's goal is to reduce the number of transactions that collapse each year, saving buyers and sellers time, money, and stress. Of course, There's also a financial incentive for the Treasury. More completed transactions mean more stamp duty collected, especially as property prices remain high across much of the country. The government plans to publish a formal roadmap for these reforms from the beginning of 2026, meaning we're still in the consultation and planning phase right now. But make no mistake, if even some of these changes are implemented, they could fundamentally reshape how property is bought and sold in the UK. For professionals across the industry, including conveyancers, mortgage advisors, and estate agents, many of these ideas are being cautiously welcomed. Anything that reduces failed transactions and wasted costs is likely to be seen as a step in the right direction, especially for buyers who've already spent thousands before seeing a deal fall apart. That said, these changes won't be perfect, and there will almost certainly be downsides to consider. Earlier binding contracts could increase pressure on buyers, especially first-time buyers, who may feel locked in before fully securing finance or resolving personal circumstances. Sellers may also be reluctant to cover upfront costs if there's no guarantee of a sale. Like any major reform, the devil will be in the detail, and how these proposals are implemented will matter just as much as the ideas themselves. Still, after years of calls for housing reform, this consultation signals a serious attempt to fix a broken system. If it works as intended, fewer people will lose their dream homes at the last minute, fewer chains will collapse, and the entire process could become faster, clearer, and more transparent. For now, all eyes are on what the government decides next and which proposals make it through to the final plan. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think these changes would make buying and selling homes easier? Or do they introduce new risks that could backfire? Would you feel more confident making an offer with all the information up front? Or would earlier binding contracts worry you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is one debate that affects almost everyone at some point in their lives. If you want to stay updated as this story